Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Educational Panacea. My name is Bhanu Pratap. So guys, आज हमारा ये सेकंड Q&A सेशन है और आज जो हमारे गेस्ट इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे आए हुए हैं उनका नाम है एडवोकेट शुभम ओसवाल और ही इज अ प्रैक्टिसिंग एडवोकेट प्रैक्टिसिंग इन दिल्ली एंड अलॉन्ग विद दैट ही इज अ रैंक होल्डर इन क्लैट आल्सो. सो आज का जो हमारा थीम है वो इस बात पे है कि क्लैट के अंदर क्या क्या चीजें जो क्लैट का एग्जाम देते हैं एलएलबी के लेवल का, तो उसके अंदर क्या क्या चीजें आपको करनी चाहिए, क्या क्या चीजें आप मिस आउट कर जाते हैं जो आपने शायद उस टाइम पे ध्यान ना दी हो, तो उन सब पे डिस्कशन करेंगे. तो सबसे पहले तो शुभम, वेलकम टू आवर प्लेटफॉर्म एंड इट्स बीन अ रियली ग्रेट ऑनर टू अस दैट यू आर जॉइनिंग अस ऑन दिस प्लेटफॉर्म. एंड मेरा आपसे सबसे पहले ये सवाल है कि ये क्लैट को लेके हमेशा इतना बज क्यों रहता है?
I think इसका आंसर बहुत सिंपल है. CLAT basically gives you an access to one of the most premier law institutes in the country. So obviously an aspirant who wants to pursue law as a career option, he gets to get an access to one of those colleges after clearing CLAT, which basically has a lot of options even after pursuing law. Like if you complete your law, your 5-year law is completed, you get to work with those people or those people in the industry who actually are the legal luminaries in the field. So the buzz is justified, I think. The buzz is pretty much justified. Once you get the exposure, once you get the right mentor, because NLUs are meant to basically nurture you in such a way that you'll get to learn a lot, not just learn in the written form, you get to learn in the practical field as well. So the buzz, I think, is completely justified.
Okay, so आपकी ऑल इंडिया 700 रैंक आई थी एंड आपको बहुत बढ़िया कॉलेज मिल सकता था, लाइक एनएलयू में टॉप 5 कॉलेज में आपका एडमिशन हो सकता था उस टाइम पे. बट देन व्हाई डिड यू ऑप्ट टू गो ओवर देयर एंड व्हाई डिड यू स्टडी इन दिल्ली ओनली?
See, my journey is a little bit different. I think it's a pretty subjective question, first of all. See, I had already taken a college after my class 12th. I was actually pursuing, I've completed my law from WIPS, IB University. And simultaneously with that, I was preparing for my CLAT. So actually, it was my second serious attempt, first of all. And the rank which I got, I had pretty much factors that I had to weigh in my mind. I thought that what is the opportunity cost of sacrificing my college, that is WIPS, for going into the CLAT? Because I think after getting into the law college, I came to understand this pretty point very straightforward, that more than the college itself, it's the process that helps you learn law. So the exposure that I got, the environment in which I was learning law, the faculty as in all, I think it was pretty worth it. So I didn't take that option of taking CLAT or NLU in that matter. Suppose I had got a rank which was pretty well in the top 200s, I would have opted an option to go for the top NLU. So that was my idea. Again, for an aspirant who does basically drop his colleges, who doesn't take any colleges, who's a dropout basically, and is appearing for the exam, I think for him it is very important. It's very important to take this college, because after scoring a rank of 700, the top NLUs is going to offer you a life, a career option, which is actually beneficial for you in the long run. So I think it's my
you just mentioned over the process. So what exactly do you mean by this word process when we are preparing for certain competitive exam, which is actually very tough?
See, my journey, if I talk about my journey, I would say I was simultaneously managing my college studies and as well as studying for my CLAT exam. I think CLAT is in itself a complete syllabus. It's a complete exam which asks you on different aspects of, I think, reasoning, quantitative aptitude, English, legal reasoning, and everything for that matter, GK as well. So managing that with my legal studies at my college was a task. And for me to pursue that together gave me that boost that if I can manage both, accordingly pretty well, so I have a pretty good option of choosing law as a career option in this college as well. So I opted for this as a alternative rather than choosing my option in
seeing your rank, it's pretty well that you have managed pretty well managing your college study, academic studies, and along with that the competitive examination. So what exactly was your strategy at that particular time, and what was your mental status at that point of time?
See, I think CLAT is a pretty uncertain exam, first of all. They keep on giving random notifications, random circulars, and they change the pattern dramatically. Suppose I had given the exam first time right after my class 12, it was an offline exam. So after that, I took my college. I started my law studies from WIPS. And in my first year of my preparation, managing my college simultaneously, I decided that I have to, first of all, I have to completely look at the syllabus, how the syllabus looks like. So I basically took the past year question papers. I had a thorough look at how the paper pattern is going around, how the things are managing, how the paper is looking around. So after that, I basically opted for a good book. I did my micro listing. Micro listing is a very important term. It's very important for every aspirant to do that. माइक्रो लिस्टिंग का मतलब ये होता है कि आपको हर टॉपिक को नोट करना है, देखना है कि what significance does it hold in your exam, in clearing your exam, उसकी weightage कितनी आ रही है एग्जाम में.
Okay.
So once you do that, you write it down and you start working on that. Suppose I'll take the example section by section. I'm talking about English language. English language में सबसे important part is reading comprehensions.
Yes.
So most of the students are not able to read the comprehension in a manner that they're able to solve the questions. Suppose I'm reading a comprehension for the first 10 minutes.
Okay.
I read the questions, I forget what I read. I have to look back at the passage again. So that's not the right approach. I think first of all, you need to have a good reading habit. You need to read a lot. You need to form an appropriate opinion about how you are able to perceive things. What the passage, the tone of the passage is in affirmative, it's in negative. You have to understand that. And I would say that while reading the comprehension passage, you have to keep a note of points that this point may be important for me to look into the questions. Moving forward in the English language, I would say the word meanings are very important. Again, for that matter, I would say you have to develop a habit of reading newspapers every day. Not just basic newspapers. I would say you should go for express newspapers, which are actually good. You should read editorials in Hindu or Indian Express for that matter, which not just increases your vocabulary, but it also helps you form an opinion about what a particular topic is trying to assert.
Okay.
That's a pretty strong point for most of the aspirants. And moving forward from English,
one
other
question
areas,
I have to ask you, like,
sure.
What is the appropriate time, or what can be the ideal time when a student can start reading the comprehension or start developing the habit of reading the newspapers and the editorial section? What do you feel is the ideal time?
I think it comes by instinct. Suppose I have given my first attempt. I would say that I'm reading a comprehension passage in a span of 15 minutes for 5 questions.
Okay.
So I think it's not justified in that matter. So I would try to cut short my time. I would read more and more passages. I would try to form my opinion as early as possible. I would try to drag down that time by 5 minutes more. I would say that I would complete that in 10 minutes or 8 minutes. If I save 7 minutes in a competitive exam, which is actually 120 minutes, that's a huge time.
Okay.
So time is a very important factor that needs to be weighed in. So moving from the English section, I would say I will talk about quant. Quant, I think, again, is a very subjective thing. You have to work on your areas. One of the most scoring areas that students actually miss out is the DI, data interpretation.
Okay.
So you have to have a command over that area. Solve as many questions as you can. Try the different categories of questions that you have. Suppose pie chart or a tabular data, or for that matter, a mix of tabular and pie chart. Try solving that. And moreover, besides that, you need to have a look of the concepts. The topic, again, you're going to micro list first of all, averages, percentages, and all those topics you have to micro list first of all. Then you make a list, you go through the syllabus, you learn the basic concepts. Concept building is very important. You should not go after learning shortcuts and tricks without knowing the basic behind that.
And that's in fact a problem these days. That's in fact a problem these days I'm finding in students.
Students, what actually do is that they look at the syllabus. They think that we should look for a shortcut, how to solve this question as early as possible. So without you have a proper basic concept regarding what the question is asking, you not just do it with the help of a shortcut trick.
Yes, definitely.
I think it won't work. It won't work in the exam. And
one more question I have to ask. One more question I have to ask you. Like, if a student who has taken the humanities in 11th or 12th, so how will he or she deal with the quant portion?
I think it's very important, first of all, that how passionate are you about clearing quant? Like, if you want to clear this exam, you have to have that willpower that come what may, I will tackle every single question that comes my way. For that example, I would take the example of maths. I think maths is a fearful area for most of the aspirants because
Definitely.
Lawyers are deemed to be weak in maths.
Definitely.
So for that matter, I would say, if you are opting for a coaching institute, premier coaching institute, obviously your concepts will be pretty much sound as compared to those who are doing it on their own, self-study. And for those who are actually self-studying, like me, I was doing it on the basis of self-study. So I took a good book. I started solving the basic concepts. I tried to understand as much as possible, like basic texts like R.S. Agarwal and all those books, which are actually helpful for you to understand the basic concept behind how this question is solved. So after doing that, you can go to some random videos. There's a lot of content on YouTube for you. You can access that and have a good idea about how the questions are framed, how are they going to be framed. So that would definitely help you in the long term. Tackling quant area maths and logical reasoning is a task for fellow lawyers and aspirants who are going to come into this field. Again, for that matter, I would say logical reasoning requires practice. You need to have hold over the basic concepts. You can look for a shortcut trick only if only after you know what the basic concepts look like. So the basic concept should be pretty much solid. Only after that, you should try solve more and more questions. The more you practice, the more you gain.
And
so
what about the area of the legal aptitude? So because as we have known, the pattern or the syllabus has changed. It is more of inductive reasoning, or like it is more based on inference, or you don't need any specific or technical knowledge about the law when you're attempting a question.
I think that's a pretty good point. That's a pretty good thing, in fact, because when I gave CLAT personally, the concepts that were asked in the paper were actually those which were taught in the law school.
Okay.
So you cannot expect the law aspirant who is going to come into the college to know the basic.
Definitely.
Law school. So he needs to be mentored in such a way. If I'm preparing for a certain exam, I need to know the basic concept. I not need to know the entire law. I need to be given a certain statement. Suppose I given a legal principle. On the basis of that, if I do deductive reasoning, I'm able to find the answer, like what the answer looks like. I think it's pretty enough. When we gave the CLAT exam, I think they asked a lot of legal based questions which were actually static, a lot of legal jargons, which we cannot expect a legal law aspirant to know. So I think CLAT has changed that. Certainly, they have moved from that legal jargon field to an area where they're going to ask questions more on the basis of your understanding, how you understand, how you perceive the law.
Okay.
So I think that's a pretty good change for that matter. And if you are able to understand well, like legal principles, you're able to read and you're able to solve the questions accordingly, that would help you scoring good. Because in the earlier area, we need to learn a lot of things. A lot of mugging up was involved. So that has been completely slashed up. So that's a pretty good thing that CLAT has done in recent years.
So as you know that the syllabus has changed, and what do you feel is the major factor which is playing a bigger role in the change of the syllabus? So
I think CLAT has done phenomenal changes. First of all, the questions that were asked prior to 2020, they were 200 questions, I think, and you were allotted 120 minutes for the same.
yes.
So that leaves around 35 seconds for a particular question, approximately. And now they have slashed the number of questions to 150.
Yes.
So that approximately leaves around a time of 1 minute to solve a particular question. And one more thing that I've seen in the notification is that they have taken out areas where you actually need to mug up facts. For that example, for that matter, I would take up with English. You had to learn a lot of synonyms, antonyms, word meanings, verbs, articles. That has been pretty much reduced to an extent. Now they ask you to understand or analyze the exam pretty well. Like you have to read much more comprehensions. How do you deduct your reasoning? That is more important for a law aspirant to pursue legal language as well, legal career option. And moving forward to other areas, I would say quant. Again, quant, they were when I gave my exam, the major focus of the quant section area was more on the concepts. You need to know a lot of concepts for clearing the math section. That was a pretty much problematic thing for me as well. Okay. Now they have changed this. They have changed more on the DI part. They have moved more on the data interpretation part. They expect you to know or analyze more. Again, the mugging up factor has reduced to an extent. Same, I would say again with the general knowledge area which most of the students actually suffer. The static part of the GK has been reduced to an extent, which is actually a very good thing. They ask you to read current affairs of the last 6 months, 8 months, or 12 months, whatever you span you're taking up. And if that is enough for you to clear an exam, I think it's more than enough. You don't need to study static facts like which place, which country, which national park. I think they're not very important for a law aspirant to know.
They have left those things for another competitive exam, I feel.
Exactly.
Yes,
And
definitely.
even in the logical reasoning part, There were a lot of puzzles earlier. They've changed that, and I think they've moved from logical reasoning in a manner. They've moved to a deductive reasoning part. They're going to give you a statement. They're going to give you an assertion. You have to find out the inference from that. So
Yes,
that is more logical. That is more logical for a law aspirant to know that how much he is
definitely,
able to comprehend the fact, how much he's able to understand the facts, and able to find out an answer from a critical situation.
definitely,
That's a
definitely.
very important thing for a law aspirant to know.
And what is the ideal time, or you can say the number of study hours, which is always a problem for each and every student. Every student is thinking about the fact that what number of hours I should give for my particular examination, what amount of daily hours or the daily sitting I need to give. So what exactly is your feeling about that?
I think, again, I would say it's a process. The entire exam, the preparation itself is a process. When I used to wake up in the morning, I didn't have a fixed time that I would study for 5 hours or 6 hours a day. I thought I would start by beginning my day with reading a newspaper. I took a
Okay.
newspaper, I read it for 1 hour, suppose 1.5 hours. I took more time than that. Then I think my preparation already started. I didn't note the time, it was actually helping me in the process. Then I decided that if I am pretty much fresh on the starting of the week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I took up heavy subjects. I took up
Okay.
quant, I took up reasoning, I took up areas which actually require a lot of knowledge, which require actually a lot of practice. Because I
True.
always used to take a Sunday off. I didn't used to study on Sundays because I used to start afresh on a new weekend, new weekday. Again, TTS, I would say you have to have a definite plan. Like if you're going to start with your math section, your legal section, or your logical reasoning section, I would say allot time in such a manner that your brain doesn't fade out.
Okay.
I would say an ideal time for an aspirant who is just a beginner, who doesn't know anything, would be 4 or 5 hours in the beginning to start off. And gradually you can increase time so that you get habitual to reading or start learning or start practicing more. So it comes up with time. I think it's a process and it helps you long in a long journey.
Definitely. And had you been a candidate, and this is a personal question I have to ask you, had you been a candidate today, so what different you would have done? Or there
I
must
think
be
I
something which you must have felt that I must have done that if I had attempted that exam.
see, I'll take credit for that. I'll say I had given my heart out for this exam. So I don't want to answer this question in such a manner that I would have done that. I would have done this. I would have done that. I think every aspirant should have that fulfilling feeling inside them, that him or
Definitely.
her, that I have prepared so well that nothing in my exam could have come this way. That I would have achieved this. I would have achieved that. So you have to be satisfied first of all that your preparation that you are actually doing is worthy enough for you to clear that exam. If you have that, you don't need to think that you could have done this, you could have done that. So I think you should have this fulfilling feeling inside you. I'm pretty much satisfied. I don't think if I would have given this attempt again, I would have done something different. Again, a lot of factors weigh in: the level of confidence, the level of luck that you have on that day, the atmosphere around you, the people who are you actually hanging out with, your mentoring. Everything weighs a lot of advantage for you in that matter. But again, if I say that what I would have done different to clear this exam, I would have said ki everything is a process, and I am completely satisfied with that. I would not change that.
Many of the students do not understand this fact that satisfaction a, is an important aspect when you are dealing with a competitive examination. And
Very important.
what has been the role of moral support while you were preparing for the examination? Because I have seen a lot of students, I've also mentored a lot of students who are in the process of competitive examination, and they just isolate themselves and start studying. They feel like isolation is the only way to the success.
I think that's a very wrong approach, first of all. See, again, if you're preparing for a 1 year or 2 year course, you're a dropout, you're preparing for 1 year, you're preparing for 2 year. You need to have a pretty multi-pronged approach in this case. You don't have to be too much carried away with the exam that I will be isolating myself, I would live a life like a hermit. You don't need to do that. You have to be in the process, you have to be in the society, you have to enjoy all the things in society and simultaneously prepare. For that example, in my case, I did my law college, I was pursuing my law, I gave my exams, I cleared them, I prepared for the CLAT as well. So that itself instills a confidence inside you that you can manage all things accordingly by not isolating yourself from a particular fact that you're preparing for a certain exam. You don't need to do that. So the entire process needs to be done in such a manner that you multitask everything. You are able to go for a daily walk as well. You eat at the right time. You don't watch too much television. You don't get too much stressed out. You talk to your family, to your friends. And again, you asked about moral support. Moral support is one of the most important things while preparing for an exam in a long-term journey. Have people around you who motivates you, who ask you to do better in life. Have those friends. I am blessed with a beautiful family. My parents, they have encouraged me the entire journey. So if you have that privilege around you, I think you should take that as an advantage, who don't dissuade you or discourage you for your failures and encourage you for every positive step that you take. That's a pretty significant achievement
And
for every aspirant to achieve.
in any competitive exam, there is always a debate on the concept of hard work versus smart work, because I have seen a lot of students who actually compete and they say like, I have done smartly this thing, or I have not done that amount of hard work which the other student used to do, but still I managed to succeed in that particular competitive examination. So what is your take on that?
I think smart work is just a jargon for those aspirants who are actually have cleared the exam.
Yes,
So
definitely.
hard work is nothing but an added version of smart work. It's a more updated version. Let's try to understand with this with the help of an example. Suppose there are two aspirants, aspirant A and aspirant B. I am the aspirant A, you are the aspirant B. I am preparing for the exam. I don't look at the syllabus. I don't look at the past year question papers. I'm just trying to solve every single concept that comes my way.
Definitely.
I don't do micro listing of topics. I don't have a certain plan. On the other hand, you are the aspirant B, you are preparing for a certain exam. First of all, you look at the past year question papers. You do the every single micro listing you have done on your part, that no topic is left out from my end to know, which is important for this exam. And one more important thing that adds to the smart work is your curriculum. Suppose I have a plan of preparing for an exam in a 1 year phase. I would draw that into small parts. I would fix my plan for a week, for that example, for that matter, fortnight, or for that matter, at max at 1 month. Don't make too much long plans so that you are not able to achieve them and feel demotivated that I was not able to do that. So that is the defining line, formal, very minute line between hard work and smart work. Both A and B are doing hard work, but B is working in a much more organized manner. So I think smart work is a defining factor in that case.
Okay, otherwise that is a technical jargon which is commonly used by the
Nothing more
coaching
than that.
institutes as well. So
Correct.
You just mentioned about the small goals or the small plannings. So my next question to you is that how much important is the targeting for a certain curriculum in a particular competitive examination? Like some people target for a longer period of goals. Some people like they are just making plans for 1 week or 2 weeks. So how much important is that?
See, I would say if you are actually you're doing something for a very first time, you're new to a particular field, don't take too much long jumps. You should try to keep your steps as small as possible, because that would help you analyze and perform in a better manner. Let's try to understand this with the help of an example. Suppose I'm preparing for an exam as huge as CLAT, which lakhs of aspirants are giving. I keep a fortnightly target that I have to do sectional areas. I have to work on my sectional areas. I have to work on my English language for the first 15 days. Then I have to work on my quant area for the next 15 days. And in the next month, I try to break that 15 days into a week. I say I have to complete my revision into a week for that English language, for that quant area. So I try to set my own targets, which are actually suitable for me, not for everyone. Everyone has to have a different strategy according to his own abilities and skills. So that is a very important thing for you to understand, that your targets, which are actually short term, and when you achieve them, you feel a sense of fulfilling inside, feeling that I have been able to achieve this target. And if I try to set another target, I would be able to break that as well.
Okay.
So in a span of 3 or 4 months, you'll realize that instead of fulfilling one target, you've actually completed 10 or more.
Yes.
So that's actually a very motivating thing for you to achieve in long term.
And one more
help
aspect,
you to achieve this exam. Yes.
like as you also know that a lot of students are appearing for CLAT and many of them are actually not succeeding in the examination, and they just change their field thinking that I am not eligible for this particular exam or I am not able to do that. So they are like doing some other humanities course or doing and involving themselves in some other courses or other professions. So what exactly is your advice for them?
I think when you start preparing for the CLAT or you're not able to clear CLAT, I think the candidates are pretty young, 17, 18, 19, 20 at max, not more than that. So I think if you're pursuing a field which is different from law, I think it's actually worth it. It's not the end of the road. Nothing is the end of the road. You're only at the beginning of your career. Don't get so much demotivated that I'm not able to clear CLAT. I'll not find anything good in this life. It's nothing like that. Life has a beginning, but the process itself defines your end.
And
So
because
if you are motivated itself, yes.
because I have seen a lot of students like they are having this intention, like if I'm not selected in CLAT, I will not pursue LL because any college other than the NLU is not good, is not appropriate for me, or I will not get a job, or I will not get a good career when I'm an advocate. So what is your take on it?
I think we should look at Supreme Court and High Court for that matter. A lot of advocates and a lot of Supreme Court judges and all those, all of them are not from the premier law institutes.
Definitely.
Many of them have excelled pretty well in their field coming from an ordinary college and making their legal field a huge luminary just because they had the intent. Intent is very important.
Very important, very important.
More than the college, more than the process, it's the intent. But why are you pursuing law as a career option? If you're passionate enough, the college or the tag is just a name, I think. It's just a tag.
Definitely. And my last question to you at the end of this discussion session is that there is always a debate of English versus Hindi, like English is not required at all, English is not required everywhere. The people who are not able to or who are not willing to learn English, so they are always having this debate like English is not required, like if we can do in other regional languages, and that is equally correct also. But what do you feel is the role of English when you succeed or when you become an advocate or when you are competing for CLAT also?
I think the colonial mindset he's pretty hard on us. I think we are pretty much.
Definitely.
For that, I would like to say that English is, I think, a very important thing for a legal aspirant or a lawyer to succeed in the legal field, because the CLAT exam itself is conducted in English language only.
Okay.
It doesn't take your exam in the Hindi language. So that's, first of all, very dissuading factor for an aspirant who actually has a proficiency in Hindi language. But I would not discourage those students who are actually good in Hindi and not that good in English, because the main domain of work, a lawyer which actually makes money, is in the district courts. I think district court has a lot to offer, and there is no use of English language in district courts. So there is no factor that you have to be demotivated in such a manner that you're not going to succeed in the legal field. It's nothing like that. Again, English holds a pretty much advantage if you know it pretty well. I would like to quote Article 348 of the Indian Constitution. It says that all proceedings in the High Court, every High Court and Supreme Court, shall be in English, otherwise the Parliament directs. So the intention of the legislature, the Constitution itself says that English has to be the prerequisite for you to practice in High Courts and Supreme Court. No such bar in district courts.
Definitely.
So again, you have a large domain of work. You don't have any dearth of work. You can learn a lot. Again, in the process of learning law, you can improve your English as well. If you feel you are pretty much weak in English, you need to learn the process. Nothing is unachievable in this world. So I think you should manage that as well.
You mean to say that there is always a scope for those people who are not able or who are not willing to learn English as a language, and they are going to stick to their regional languages, or for that matter Hindi, and they can also succeed in life.
Definitely for that matter, because even if you see that case, there are a lot of advocates, I've seen them personally practicing district courts, that they don't use English language and they use their own regional language, and they're pretty sound with the law, and they're earning pretty well. They're running pretty well. So you cannot say that English is a barrier for you to perform well in law.
It can play an important role, but it is not the only thing which you need to learn.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
So Mr. Shubham, it was really a very good session with you. And I expect that I must invite you to some other session on some other topic regarding the practice and other things. So thank you so much for joining our platform, and thank you so much for sparing so much amount of time and sharing your valuable experiences with us. Thank you so much, Shubham.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you so much.